Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Miguel Mendez, marketing specialist here at Unravel Data. And before we get started, there are three housekeeping reminders that I would like to cover. The first is, throughout the webinar, please drop your questions into the question box, and we'll do our best to answer them live or respond via email if we're short on time. If you submit one of the top 10 questions during this event as ranked by one of our fantastic panelists, you'll earn some cool Unravel swag. Additionally, this webinar will be available instantly on demand to listen to at your leisure, so feel free to pause or replay as needed. And lastly, help us improve. Share your feedback on the session by rating this webinar, and let us know if there are any other topics you'd like to hear about. All right, that covers it. So with the reminders out of the way, the floor is all yours.
Hello, and welcome to Unravel's Cloud Data Cost Q&A 2024, your top 7 cloud data cost questions answered. I'm Clinton Ford, Vice President of Product Marketing at Unravel Data, and we'll be looking back at this year's most popular questions asked by you, our audience, and answered by our very own Vice President of Solutions Engineering, Chris Santiago. Before we get started, I'd like to thank all of you who attended our FinOps Summer Series as we deep dived into all things FinOps, from strategy to implementation, with a range of guest speakers that helped support a topic that is increasingly becoming a top priority for data teams. FinOps is a cultural practice that has been adopted by 48 of the Fortune 50, with 2 additional cloud providers, AWS and Microsoft Azure, joining the FinOps Foundation in 2023 alone. The FinOps Foundation has dramatically grown to over 12,000 individual community members from 7,000 in 2022, 8,000 certified FinOps practitioners, and on track to more than double the number versus 2022, and over 5,000 participating companies, including ourselves. If that wasn't enough to convince you to get started, Gartner has recently announced cloud adoption has outpaced the development and adoption of cloud financial management best practices. In 2022, nearly 98% of the approximately $11 billion revenue growth in database management systems market was in the cloud, but less than half of organizations surveyed in 2023 had a centralized approach for budget authority, and 14% had no financial governance program. So if there's one thing to take away from today's event, is that you need to get started now or you'll miss the boat. With that, I'd like to kick it off with one of our most asked questions. Cloud data cost management is a hot button in my company. Is there a framework or methodology practice that we can incorporate that we should use when it comes to FinOps?
That question you can take many ways, but I'm going to make an assumption here. So I'm assuming that you're trying to do some sort of cost analysis between how things are running in a specific workload like Hadoop today. And we wanted to start understanding, hey, would this be cheaper if I were to use Databricks or maybe Spark on Kubernetes or maybe EMR leveraging Spark? Now, let me tackle the cloud side of the house first. On the cloud side, if we understand high level about the type of resources that this particular job is doing, then I can go into the public portals for these cloud companies, and I can high level understand what those costs may be, right? So I can pick a particular VM, know that it's going to run for X number of hours, and then I have my costs from that perspective. So I won't say the cloud is easy, but there's ways for us to quantify it from that perspective. You got to calculate that all in to understand what is my all-in cost per node, then times the number of nodes that you have, then you divide it by the number of CPU and memory resources they have, and then you finally have that true metric. Once you actually have that number, you can go ahead and times that to that job's CPU seconds, vCore seconds or memory seconds. And now you actually have a true apples to apples comparison of this is what it actually costs on my Hadoop estate versus what it would look like if I were to do this in the cloud. Now, one thing to take advantage, and we see this time and time again with a lot of folks, is that the assumption that lifting and shifting these jobs from Hadoop into something like a Databricks or like a Spark on Kubernetes is, you're going to save money from a cloud perspective. And that's actually not the case. And in fact, a lot of folks get burned throughout their cloud journey when they make these assumptions that lift and shift is like a like for like from the cloud. And unfortunately, that's not the case, right? Cloud vendors assume that you're taking advantage of cloud native features, like you're turning things on and off, and that's how you're going to recoup the costs. But if you're not taking that into account, you're going to get burned. So the best way to address that is actually think about ways of optimizing, from within the platform that you're on right now. In this case, in my example, Hadoop, right? So using something like Unravel, which provides insights for optimization, whether it's a resource over allocation, or maybe we're doing this from a performance standpoint, I highly recommend that you run that process so you get a true cost of what this will look like. And you won't be overpaying once you actually move this into the cloud.
Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate that. Okay, here's another question that came in. We are experiencing some astronomically high cost queries currently. What is the most expensive query you have ever encountered, and how does Unravel help solve this efficiently?
This one keeps on going up over every single time I start talking with customers. Right now, I'm at $140,000 for a single query. I think that for this particular use case, person probably didn't realize the sheer amount of data that they were bringing. And it doesn't help that these systems are so powerful today that they're literally providing the answer within minutes. Now, where we can help there is we do have intelligence, AI, that's built in to look at things such as the code, or in this particular case, the query, right? For this particular, or this specific use case, just providing a partition key instead of bringing in years worth of data and only just bringing it to the literal, just the amount of days that you needed to process, obviously has a huge impact on the amount of compute resources that you're using. So Unravel also has the ability to set up proactive alerting. So if you hit a specific threshold, we could even in many instances kill the job too. So we always got to be careful with that. We don't want to be upsetting users, but in situations where this prevents a $140,000 query from actually being registered, that could actually be a good use case.
Wow, thanks for sharing that, Chris. Those are some big numbers. Our executives would like to see a dashboard with cost and efficiency trends. Could you show an example of creating a dashboard in Unravel?
Absolutely. So we actually have one created that ships already configured from within Unravel. So what you're seeing here is our Insights Overview page. Now, previously I was showing that Databricks demo, but what you're looking at here is an executive view in terms of things such as, I want to solve for cost. So how are my costs trending over time from a interactive clusters or a job clusters perspective? What are some areas that we can actually improve by just changing the instance type? And so we can see the savings here from this perspective. We can also just understand, just from an observability standpoint, what are my top groups or the top clusters by cost over a particular time span here. Resource efficiency, app acceleration. I won't go into the details, all the details of this, you can kind of see it, but depending on your use case, right? Executives want to know about costs. They can go ahead and look at how things are trending from the cost perspective, and also areas to improve. I might be a developer and I might be very interested in making sure that I'm meeting my SLAs. So what are things that we can do in terms of things that are making my jobs inefficient? What are some of the things that I can do and look at? And I have this dashboard all here with everything that is clickable. So I can actually go in and start seeing exactly what entails that KPI. And I can actually start providing, or I can start using Unravel's recommendations to realize those efficiency gains.
That's fantastic, Chris. Thanks so much. Here's another top question. We would like to enable a showback for our finance team to see total costs to help the business understand which teams are consuming resources. Is there a way to do this using Unravel?
So if you recall in our demo, where I showed that chargeback report, what I didn't call out is that that is actually the all-in cost. So think about things such as not only the Databricks service level cost, so that DBU, but everything else that's associated. So the disk, the VMs itself. And so when FinOps practitioners are asking, hey, what is that true total cost of ownership? You can actually get that from within the chargeback report in Unravel today.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Chris. Here's another question. We do not have revenue data. What would you recommend we do to start measuring unit costs for FinOps?
I think what you first need is follow that discovery pointer, right? Being able to understand assets, and then also be able to track, hey, how much are we spending from that standpoint? What folks first start off is it may be an infrastructure conversation first. So like, hey, what is this my impact to my AWS, Azure, GCP cloud bill? But we need to start also thinking about the business benefits as well. Like, what is this pipeline powering? Or is this a new data product, right? Maybe we're launching some new product to our customers, and we want to start actually tracking and measuring, is this actually worth it for the organization, right? That's where we need to start understanding the business side of the house, right? So being able to understand not just what the resources is, but also taking into account the number of folks involved, right? So think about like the data engineers, the data scientists from that standpoint, and then really tying it to like, what are the business goals? Like it's, this particular data product, we expect it to be a revenue generating new product that we're announcing for our customers, and then being able to track that over time. So like over the first 3, 6, 12 months, hey, things are tracking positive. Hey, maybe I want to start investing more resources. Maybe I want to make that LLM model even more powerful from that standpoint. Or adversely, right? Hey, we were expecting that this was going to be this much revenue generating. We're actually at a loss, or maybe we're breaking even. Maybe we might need to shift those time and resources over to a new data product, right? Being able to understand both the technical side of what this is going to cost from an OpEx standpoint, resources, both from a man hours plus actual cloud resources, and then what are my business objectives, and if I'm achieving it, is something that more successful folks that are launching data products are measuring their success from that standpoint.
Oh, perfect. Really appreciate that, Chris. One other question. We would like to implement cost allocation to help teams see the resources they are consuming. Are other companies doing this as well? Any thoughts on this, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a level of maturity. In fact, I was with a customer today where they are moving from a Hadoop environment into Databricks. And chargeback is very important to them. It's a very large data shop. And one of the challenges that they're challenging us is that like, hey, we need proper chargeback. The problem though, is that they're using, it's what they call an interactive clusters, where it could be multiple users, using a cluster. In other words, it's very similar to like an on-prem type of architecture. I mean, and literally what they're doing is they're doing a lift and shift, right? Some of the bad practices, or I would say bad practices, but things that you would do in a multi-tenant, finite, resource environments, they're doing exactly that. And the challenge though is like doing that and trying to track even more granular from that perspective, the way that they're submitting their job. It's challenging, right? Because we can't get to that granular level of detail because they're just following just bad, well, we'll just say older practices that don't translate well in the cloud itself. So the ideal situation is that let's take advantage of the cloud. Let's actually break some of these workloads into their own compute instances, right? Because that's one of the beauty of the cloud is, breaking these things up and sizing up, the jobs accordingly based on what they actually need in terms of compute, memory, so on and so forth. And so and once you actually get down to that level of detail, then you can get very granular in terms of like, okay, I know exactly how much this person or this particular user used because, now they're following the right architecture. But yeah, I think that there's always that level of maturity. And in order for us to not only get that chargeback visibility, but also take advantage of things that you can do to actually save from a FinOps perspective. A lot of times, unfortunately, that gets learned the hard way. Also, one more point too is that also helps folks from a predictability standpoint. So there are some FinOps methodologies, practices, best practices are being followed just inherently because, hey, if I know that I'm going to be paying for X number of slots per month, I know I'm not going to be surprised by the bill. But chances are, though, a lot of times folks are making decisions in terms of like how many slots that I need based on some, hey, this is what I think it would be, so we're going to go ahead and try this out. So, there's always that balance, right? If you do too little slots, then you're actually impacting performance across the organization. And if you do too much, well, then you're paying for things that you didn't even actually use. So the BigQuery slot model is, is interesting, but there's still best practices that you can do from a FinOps standpoint, right? Like being able to write an optimal SQL query. Doesn't matter if it was slot pricing or if you're actually paying, on demand. You don't want to just waste resources from that perspective. So, and then having the proper visibility from that standpoint is also important as well.
Oh, excellent advice, Chris. Thank you very much. Okay, here's a new topic, a question that came in. What are the key FinOps features of Unravel? Do you have a recommended way of integrating Unravel into a DevOps CI/CD pipeline?
Absolutely. In fact, we are just updating our latest build for supporting just that. The way that it works is we'd be connecting into your favorite CI/CD platforms, things such as like Azure DevOps or GitHub. Really, all we need to do is connect our webhooks. And from there, you start seeing Unravel's AI insights and recommendations from within the platform itself.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Okay, and with that last answer, I'd like to thank all of you who have joined us and coming today, and hope you found that this list was really useful. If you'd like to get started with an Unravel free account, we have included a link to our Create Account page so you can start to implement some of our learning today for Databricks, for Snowflake, for BigQuery, and help kickstart or at least progress your cloud data strategy in 2024. So looks like there's a live question that came in. How is AI being used to help reduce cloud costs? So in order to sift through all of the metadata, organizations are turning to purpose-built AI to overcome challenges such as limited budgets, talent shortages, and just the time required to upskill employees. For example, Unravel customers have run 50% more workloads for the same budget with cloud cost management and data FinOps. This enables chargeback and showback reporting for cloud data analytics, cloud cost optimization, and automated budget tracking, spend guardrails, and alerts. Customers are also achieving 99% of their SLAs with operations and troubleshooting through automated performance optimization, proactive alerts, and data pipeline optimization. We're also seeing customers launch new data applications 3 times faster with data pipeline and application optimization. They're able to achieve speed, reduce costs, and reliably optimize their applications. They're also able to perform automated bottleneck analysis of their data pipelines and get code level insights. Excellent question. And if you have additional questions, feel free to continue entering those into the Q&A chat. Also, I'll stay on for another 10 minutes or so as you set up your free account in case you have any questions about creating your account or connecting to your cluster, to your warehouse, to your project, and we'd be happy to follow up with you after this event. Thank you so much for joining us on this event, and we look forward to helping you, again, kick off or progress your cloud data cost strategy in 2024.